McCloskey
and Theo Ellsworth.
We're in Missoula, Montana, home of the 3-hour sunset. I looked this up. Did you know in the winter in Montana, like the shortest days are like 9 hours? And if what I am saying is correct, and I think it is, that the sunset lasts 3 hours, that means 2/3 of your day is sunrise and sunset.
Yeah, that's true. And the dead definitely feels like you blink and the sunlight is gone.
I'm going to ask you this question I got already.
Okay, I'm going to start drawing.
Yeah, go ahead, start drawing. Gary Openhias said, question for Theo. It appears that most of your artwork is done using traditional media, pen, paper, wood, etc. Have you done any artwork digitally? And if so, what hardware and software do you use?
I actually am fairly computer inept besides being able to scan stuff and send them to people. I have done pretty much nothing digitally. Against it, I just, for me personally, I prefer just being able to have a pad of paper and a pen. I like to learn some stuff like that, especially for like film and animation. As far as just sitting down and drawing, I guess I prefer the traditional stuff. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Kind of changes the way it feels being alone, drawing alone, when you know that you're on the internet.
Yeah. I guess for me, drawing is usually like a quiet activity, so I don't know how talkative I'll be.
Fair enough. I have to ask you for the Wi-Fi password again, so I can do it on my phone, so I can get the Twitter alerts people might send you.
Okay.
As well. I can just look at it on the thing too.
That's right there. How do we know if it's actually working?
If it's actually working, that people are watching?
Yeah.
Well,
or that the film is coming?
Oh,
okay.
Here, I'll show you there.
Nice.
So 4 people are watching right now, and if any of you have questions that you'd like to ask Theo or myself, feel free to either tweet me at cyberpunkdan or email me, patrickmccloskey@gmail.com or cyberpunkapocalypse@gmail.com. Otherwise, we're just going to draw, hang out.
If you have any questions, feel free to ask too.
Yeah. I guess I did. Yeah. I mean, I guess I first heard about your stuff because Zoe, my sister, was living in Portland, right? And she mentioned.
Yeah.
And she was really excited for your first book to come out, or your first big book, because you've been doing zines forever, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I was putting out zines for years before I ever had a collection put out by a publisher.
When did you, was that the whole time you were in Portland? Or was that after or before you showed up in Portland?
Yeah, no, I was making mini comics and zines well before I went to Portland.
Yeah. Where was your first access to that kind of stuff?
The first time I really got exposed to it was going to the Alternative Press Expo in San Francisco. Before that, I was just making comics and thinking that I needed a publisher to discover me and put it out for me. And then I went to the Alternative Press Expo and just saw all these kids producing their own stuff and making like beautiful silk-screened editions of things and just doing it in their own terms and doing things that no publisher might even want to touch. And that became my favorite kind of stuff. So, and I had, tons of pages of finished work that I never showed anyone, and I just finally decided to put it out myself and kind of find my own audience.
Just realized how convenient it is that you're right-handed and I'm left-handed. I didn't know.
I guess we chose the right sides to work too.
Yeah. Yeah, so your first zines were comic zines then, that you saw?
My very first zine was more like, it was like a collection of drawings that I'd done just like on receipts and stuff. I had amassed all these drawings that I would do while I was just sitting somewhere waiting for food or waiting for a bus or something. It just kind of accumulated in my wallet. I would have all these like wrinkled up drawings.
Okay, so I was thinking like the first zine you saw.
Oh, the first one I saw?
Yeah, do you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I got kind of exposed to a whole bunch of it at once. And the first time I went to a show with zines, I like bought as many as I could and kind of poured over. There was definitely like the art zines and the mini comics that really kind of floored me.
Actually, I think my first zine my sister sent me from Portland. Well, when did you show up in Portland? Because I feel like it was in like 2004 and 5. She was just super excited about everything that was going on there. And it felt like everyone, a certain age of person, was all just showing up and just doing stuff on cardboard that somehow kind of looked similar for no reason. It was really exciting. I guess some of the stuff that people make fun of in Portlandia now was like new and really important to a lot of people, maybe.
Yeah. It was like 2004, I think, that I started discovering all that stuff and deciding to put it out on my own. I think it was 2005 I made my first actual zine and printed it. It wasn't until 2007 that I moved to Portland and discovered that there was an actual like bigger scene for that. And met people who actually were interested in the same stuff, I guess. I knew about all the weird comic artists that I like.
I mean, actually, you met Phil Dallin because you were drawing with him, right?
I discovered his comics like forever ago and wrote him like a letter and like ordered some of his self-published stuff from him. I think I ordered a shirt and just like sent him a drawing like years ago, and he wrote back and sent me a drawing.
Cool.
And then it was when I was living in Portland that I actually met him, and we ended up hanging out and drawing occasionally.
Was that, the first stuff you found of his, was that handmade stuff as well, or is that like more traditional?
I think the first stuff I read of his was like the Pop Gun War individual issues that I think Absence of Ink put out. Those were super awesome. Yeah, it was kind of weird. I bought so many like self-published comics that I loved, and then moved to Portland and ended up meeting like a ridiculous number of the people that I've been reading for a long time. So Portland seemed kind of like this magical, impossible place.
And so now you still do just like self-published stuff? Do you do stuff just with Secret Acres or other people as well?
I mean, I've been doing a lot of stuff for anthologies and doing a little bit of like paid like kids comics. Like I did a SpongeBob comic a while ago and stuff like that. And I still put out like zines of just my notebook drawings and kind of stream of conscious stuff. And then Secret Acres puts out like my bigger comics. Yeah.
And you also then just make your more fine art.
Yeah.
Puppets, and I saw something on the internet of a giant-headed puppet show with your stuff. Did that happen recently?
It did, yeah. That's all local friends here. My friend Josh Wagner, who's a novelist, asked me to collaborate with him, where I drew a series of pictures and gave them to him, and then he wrote a story based on what he saw in the pictures. And then our friend Scott Morris ended up creating puppets and huge paper mache costumes with a whole crew of people. And it became a theater production put on by Viscosity Theater, which was founded by the two of them and a couple other friends. So yeah, that was the biggest kind of multifaceted collaboration I've ever done.
What was the story? Did you have could you do a plot synopsis or whatever?
It became like a book of illustrated prose was what the drawings turned into, and then the play itself was almost like the entire story, like boiled down into almost this emotional kind of sequence of events. It's sort of a ghost story. My kind of tagline for it was that it was a cartoon exorcism. Josh is better explaining this story. It's still actually a work in progress. I think there's going to be more art to it and more writing.
Seems like a lot for being a dad too, right? Is that makes it harder, I imagine, to keep up with doing so much stuff?
Yeah, well, it definitely keeps me more focused. Like when I come to my studio now, I just sit down and get working. Like I try not to hesitate or waffle over anything. I just try to like get that forward momentum going and see where my art takes me. Now I have a newborn at home, so it's definitely been challenging to get enough work done, but it's also hugely inspiring. Like I feel like my work has jumped by leaps and bounds by having kids.
What do you think that is? Just because the urgency of completion, but also I guess you have very dreamlike stuff. Is like that it?
Yeah, I mean I feel like a lot is inspired by my kids. Like my 2-year-old, just seeing the way he sees things and what he gravitates towards, and just kind of the surreal conversations I end up having with him. Yeah.
I feel like that this is a conversation. Maybe it's just like the age group of the friends I have, but like is increasingly there's this idea of having children stopping art careers, especially for women or whatever. And how, I mean, there are more and more visual examples, as far as I can tell, of that not being the case.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there's a lot of great artists out there that are parents. I don't know. I just feel like for me, it's made me a lot more focused. Like I don't know. Like my past self seems lazy to me now when I think back about how much time I used to have.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm still getting just as much done now as I did then. But I don't know. It's just made everything stronger. I feel like.
Yeah, when I did that business class for writers and artists in Pittsburgh Flight School, it was like, like a lot of the other people had kids, and I was like, why aren't I doing more? Why aren't I like rich and famous and living on a beach or something? Or like, why don't I have everything I want because I have infinite time and like no responsibility? Like, and that just seeing that like affected how I thought about what I should do, which is kind of why I'm living in a van, traveling around, drawing with random people.
Yeah. It's a good time to do that. You're also working on a book right now?
Yeah.
That's the plan.
I've written a lot on this book. So my first book was a hybrid novel, so it like jumps between comics and prose.
Okay.
And I'm trying to do that again. But there's some things that made it kind of simpler with my first book as to know when to do that. I'm doing a lot of waffling is what I'm doing. Like, you know, yeah. I'm continually like starting over.
See, if you had kids, you wouldn't do that.
Exactly.
You just have to jump in.
Guess I know the solution to my problem.
Have some kids.
I got the dog in the van. He doesn't do that for me. Yeah, but I think I have a lead because like one of the things is I really like is like a young adult coming of age story. I think, and I like how like most humans are kind of able to imagine they look a little like Harry Potter or like a character in it, or, you know, a lot of people are anyway. I like how like in fiction where you don't have a visual image of what the person's supposed to look like, it's easier to embody the idea of what that person looks like. It's like yeah, I got messy hair, maybe I could wear glasses for Halloween or whatever, you know? And so I think I'm going to put a limitation where I can't illustrate at least directly any of the faces of any of the main characters. And I think that kind of limitation will help guide what is allowed to be comics.
Yeah. So would you be drawing it like through their eyes then, or just drawing what those characters are seeing or something?
I hadn't thought about it that way. I was just kind of imagining so that most of it will be prose. Because kind of in my experience, if a book is, let's say like 2/3 comics and then a third text, the text really drags and feels super long. Like honestly, I haven't ever read the text part of Watchmen, and I hear it's great. I can't do it. It's just too hard. And so I don't want to do that to other people. But if you do it the other way around, where it's like 2/3 prose and then a third comics, it feels like once you hit the comics, you're just flying through it. So I want to kind of keep it that ratio. And then so it might be just like weird hints, like how like there are a lot of animals in it, so I can draw the animals. And maybe just shots from like distances or from behind or of their feet. Kind of, I guess the way like an illustrated children's book has additive information, but without the characters. So you said you're doing kids comics. What's that like?
It's really fun. Yeah, I mean, until recently I'd never like drawn a comic that someone else had written, or like with the SpongeBob comic. You know, someone wrote it and sent me a script, but they also left it totally open as far as the pacing goes. So every page was just like was basically like this is what happens and this is what's said, and I got to kind of choose how that's represented and how it's broken up on the page and everything. It was also colored by someone else, which I've never had done before. It was fun. I mean, it's nice. It's satisfying to get outright paid for making comics too. But it was also like a really fun experience to sort of like diving into the sort of the cartoon physics of that world and how things worked. Everything. I feel like I sort of made some leaps as a cartoonist, just trying to like make that come alive visually. And I feel like I've been applying it to my work since then too.
You mean like underwater or the SpongeBob universe?
Just the way the characters move and like the whole like just that cartoon reality of like when you need a chair, you just like whip a chair out of plain air, you know, and just how rubbery everything is, or when he's freaked out, his entire body like contorts to become like kind of grotesque or something, like his eyes fly out of his head and his arms can stretch to any length. I don't know, I just found myself thinking a lot about like almost as just like this ghost world or something where all the laws of physics are different, and trying to like inhabit that in the way I drew the comic. I definitely, probably thought way too much about it when I was working on it. It was really fun.
That's like one of the rights of someone like a writer or a comic artist. I feel like that's what's important to me about it sometimes, is just thinking too much about things that you wouldn't have to think too much about if you weren't in this particular bizarre situation of making this thing that has no serious practical purpose, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. It's like everything I draw becomes personal to me, even if I'm doing something more commercial in that kind of way. So, like everything about that story became a totally personal mission or something.
Right.
And the editor ended up telling me that it was the most personal SpongeBob comic they'd ever put out. I didn't really know what he meant by that, but
You're like,
yeah,
no, for sure.
Because that's how it felt. You know?
Well, I feel like that's, like, of the comics of yours I've read, like, that's the thing that stands out really quickly, is, like, there's this really intimate feeling, even if it's surreal and doesn't have, like, a narrative, that it's not, like, even if there's, like, not this, like, realistic stop store narrative of you telling me about your life or something, it feels like you feel close to something about someone.
That's cool. That's definitely what it is to me. I don't know. Each comic becomes a pretty intensely personal experience, even if it turns out to be a narrative that no one can follow.
Right? Yeah. I think that's like the comic, the top line monster fighting comic thing I finished recently. I'm trying to kind of pitch places because I want to do more of it. Yeah, it started as just like, I don't know, wanted to draw a dude fighting monsters or whatever, but then you're like, oh man, this guy was such a good guy, and like I start, you care.
When you spend so long just sitting like by yourself drawing a character, you end up, I don't know, like kind of diving into their heads and looking at them from so many different angles before you're done. I feel like it definitely becomes like some kind of real connection. I don't know what's totally going on there. I definitely feel like it, especially like with drawing, especially like stream of conscious drawing and with comics, I feel like you're really seeing how the artist thinks, like the way an artist lays out a page, or the way they make their characters move, or the way the comic flows, completely like is connected to how they problem solve and how they think about the world, And getting to know different cartoonists, it's like like talking to someone whose work I'm familiar with, it ends up making sense to me, like their comics make more sense to me as to how they function as a person and how they seem to relate to the world.
there's a study that made me kind of excited that came out of Berkeley this past year about fiction. Because I'm always, when you dedicate your life to doing something, I think about artists as people that do stuff that doesn't make sense for no reason all the time, kind of. Or like, I guess, people that make things that have no practical purpose, but other people like anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's kind of, and then if you're someone that's dedicating your life to doing something like that, or at least I find myself constantly trying to justify the fact that this is what I do,
Mm-hmm.
at least to myself. And there was a study that came out that was helpful for me in that regard, because it was just saying that fiction does two things. It increases people's ability to empathize with each other. Like even at this really simple level, like reading 15 minutes of a fictional narrative makes people better at tests of like looking at close-ups of eyes and guessing what emotion that person is feeling, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the other thing is it makes people answer personality tests, identity tests different. It changes them, but it's like in a totally unpredictable way. It doesn't matter the story, because it's like they inhabit that story, and then, well, my extrapolation is because they inhabit that story, and it affects the way they think based on the experiences they've already had. Like those are like two things I can totally get behind. Nothing else is getting people to care, like not even to care, but to be able to understand what each other are feeling more.
Yeah, definitely.
And to change it.
I mean, storytelling is the thing that kind of like gives you that first person narrative of being able to, like if you read a novel that's all from the point of view of a character that's completely different from you, then you can like dive into their head and inhabit that. I feel like that's been a really valuable experience for me.
And maybe it's like even more important because there's also like now, because it also studies that like the more people use social media and the internet, the less good they are at understanding what other people are feeling, like this with similar like empathy tests.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I feel like in normal conversation, like the way we mimic each other when we're enjoying a conversation, where we like raise our eyebrows when other people raise their eyebrows, or back away when other people back away, that is like this kind of, that's an imitation, that is us acting as them, trying to like embody this other person, and therefore have an idea of what they might do next or what they might be feeling now. I feel like to a certain extent, like feeling emotions for people that aren't yourself is about pretending to be them.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like that's drawing comics and writing. It's just pretending to be different people all the time, every day. I teach high school kids writing once a year, then twice for 2 weeks, and the kids say that I make like weird faces and stuff when I'm writing, when I'm in it.
Really? Yeah. I totally make weird faces when, just drawing like the rubberiest cartoon character and like trying to draw their facial expression. I feel like I have to somehow mimic it to some degree, or like try to feel that way in my own head in order to draw it,
Yeah, certainly. When you do color, do you do watercolor right over your vitagraph or whatever?
Yeah, I use a lot of things. Lately, I've been using Copic brush tip markers a lot.
I don't know what those are.
I really like the way they go with the pen. But I mean, sometimes I do color first, but lately I usually do pen and ink, and then I color it afterwards.
I've been doing color first recently because it's like, I don't know, it feels like more of a sculptorly way to do stuff, and it gives me room to not waffle, because like, all right, I already kind of do this, and like if I'm like scared it's bad, I'm not going to start over because it's just watercolor. I'm going to make this better. And it becomes like this layering thing, which is fun for me.
Is watercolor your favorite?
It's just
color stuff.
and it's just what I've been doing lately. But I guess, yeah, I think stuff looks prettier when it's kind of murky and has like a bunch of different colors in it compared to like digital coloring or, I mean, marker. I really like gray markers except they run out really fast.
Yeah.
So I
That's the cool thing about the Copic markers is you can refill them.
oh
You can buy, you can open it up and put it right back in.
yeah, I would sign up for that. I've been trying to like limit my set because I live in a van and I'm already like have too much crap in there.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to like, and people keep giving me stuff as I meet them because they're very friendly and they're like they gave me this watercolor pack that I'm doodling on. Woman Michelle, who man did this awesome. She's like one of the people in charge of this amazing haunted house in Butte, Montana, and it's like run by high school kids largely.
Oh, it's all year.
No, but they work on it all year, and then it's
Okay.
just open for like a week. But that is an art form that's really interesting to learn about.
Uh-huh.
Like the people that are invested in that, it's like all it's all illusion and just kind of it's this beautiful play, and man,
They're pretty elaborate then.
really elaborate. Have you ever heard of an infinity mirror?
Yeah, I mean, just when they have mirrors
Yeah, so
facing each other, so
yeah.
infinity.
and then there'll be like a two-way glass. So the infinity mirror would be like one of those two mirrors is like one-way mirror or two-way mirror, whatever they call it. You can see through it like a glass, but
Uh-huh.
inside where you can't see, it's the other side of the mirror, and then you have like LED lights in between it.
Okay.
So it's as if you remove yourself from that infinity mirror thing you're imagining, right?
So you can't see yourself at all.
No, you just see this infinitely long dark space.
Wow.
And in this particular case, they built one. So the haunted house is also in this mine where 48 people died. So it has some good good horror history.
So some of the ghosts you see are real. You can't really tell.
Well, the real ones don't have as good makeup because they're not trying.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like these guys, I really thought I was walking over a mine. I was like, wow, they went above and beyond, used like the space they had to do this thing, but they had built this infinity mirror that you walk over and had built like a ladder that was just one rung and put it in between these mirrors so it looked like it was infinitely long. It was amazing.
Huh.
Yeah, and there's like,
I gotta go there.
yeah, I think you gotta go like tonight. It's gonna
Is that when
it's gonna end soon. I don't know.
man.
I'm shy. I should have talked to you about it. But it's also this guy Dart, who's been doing some like unofficial photographing for the Senate campaign. Took all these photos of it, and like some of just the expressions of delight on the people's face, because like everyone's scared, but they can't stop smiling.
Uh-huh.
It's like because they kind of know it's okay or whatever. It's so beautiful.
I've always wanted to create something like that, like like some kind of in-depth, complex space that people can come and wander around in.
Right.
Kind of like a museum, but more interactive. Or
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine. I have this friend, Morgan, in her house, had a giant stuffed squid that went through the first, all the rooms of the first floor, and then this big old monster that just like took a third of the living room up, and then if you crawled in it, there's just like an armchair and a lamp in it, and you just sit and read. And I feel like that's what I imagine your house to be, to a certain extent.
that's what it will be someday.
And sometimes it's just about time. I feel like this guy's house I was telling you about in Willow Creek, Montana, it's also an art gallery and a wood shop, and it's like one of those houses that's like you can just tell that someone that was cool has lived here a very long time.
Yeah. That's definitely kind of my desire, is to be able to own my own place and then slowly add to it until it becomes this giant, this ongoing project that can keep building. That'd be very satisfying. I've never had a place I could just do whatever I want to do.
Yeah. I have one, but I I feel like I'm always just trying to get it to stop falling apart. I feel like I need to get a smaller one. Or I'm actually, I'm thinking about building kind of my own. I'm living in the van. I'm liking it so far, but basically, like, a lot of trailers are just this shape that people drop on the back of a truck.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be really neat to build my own, like, trailer from scratch or close to scratch. Start small.
Yeah, you should do it.
But I also have a friend who's got 5 acres in North Carolina that he just bought, and I could totally just build a shack there too.
Uh-huh.
But then if I built a trailer, I could just park it on the land, I guess.
You could park it on the land, and then if your van is about to give up the ghost, then you build the shack around it.
Yeah. I was talking about building a shack where the van would pour into it. Like, I would back it up, and that would be like my bedroom that could always jettison out. That'd be super cool.
A removable, drivable bedroom.
I'd be like, oh, got itchy feet again.
That sounds great.
Is there anybody I just need to find in Portland while I'm there?
Oh man, yeah, so many people. If there's a Grid Lords event happening, you should go to that. A bunch of friends help put that on. Sean Christensen is kind of one of the main organizers of that. And it's basically a monthly comics and animation and storytelling kind of event. It's sort of blown up into this multimedia extravaganza that they put on in different places. Cool. It's pretty great. And there's Pony Club Gallery, which I helped start with a couple of friends back when I lived there. It's still going strong, which is where I first met your sister, because she was showing work there. And Floating World Comics. It's one of the best comic shops.
Yeah, I'm gonna go there. I heard there's a cool bookstore in this town too that I should check out.
Shakespeare and Company.
Yeah.
That's a great shop.
Is that on that street that everything's on?
It is. It's on the other side of the bridge, like just off of, if you went up Higgins and crossed the bridge, it's on the very first street to your right.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm just gonna park somewhere here tonight and then hang out in the coffee shop and do some internet and some writing for a while tomorrow. I've got a friend in Central Oregon who's got a birthday coming up, so I'm gonna visit him. And then maybe run up to Short Run. Because when else am I going to go,
Yeah, Short Run's excellent. So I would recommend that. I'll be there.
Cool. Yeah. Plus, I think if Ed is there, I really enjoy showing up randomly to places that Ed happens to be at. It'll be like the third time. Maybe just the second. I'm just excited about it. He was just at the New York Small Press Festival. No, Art Book Fair, for whatever reason. And I was there too. It's always fun to run into people you run into on a regular basis, someplace that makes sense in a place that doesn't make sense for you.
Definitely.
This is kind of like a cool mobile thing. My dad does sketchbook classes in Mexico with kids, and he gives them all like this. It's just a brush with water in it, and then leaves. So
yeah, those are cool.
I've been enjoying it.
I have one of those somewhere, and then I never used it. It's like waiting.
So what are you working on in the nearest future? Anything exciting?
Yeah, I have a few comics in the works. I'm working on the Understanding Monster Book 2 is about to come out in Brooklyn this coming weekend, I'm working on finishing book 3. And I also have a few other, like, black and white comics that I'm working on. They're going to be longer in length, too.
Do you have like a preference of working black and white or color or whatever?
Well, when you're saying Monsters, the first thing I did in full, like, hand-painted color. It's definitely a lot more labor-intensive, but it felt like that story needed, like, all the colors to me are these emotional layers. Like, every color has its own specific meaning to me, and so it's kind of this whole symbolic language that sort of came out in the work. So it's kind of necessary with that, but it's way more time-consuming. So now, like, going back to some black and white comics, it kind of feels like a breeze, like I can finish it. I'm working a lot smaller. I'm doing, I don't know, like, I guess focused more on pacing, doing these tiny pages in black and white. So I've sat down and finished like 4 pages in a day before with that.
Yeah.
And it feels really liberating to work that way now after doing these giant pages that take me forever. I'm about to do another album cover for Astral Industries, which is a record label I work for. So I do all their releases. So I've been listening to their newest release, and trying to work out what imagery I'm going to do for that. I've got a few other just little, like, smaller illustration jobs I need to finish.
What kind of stuff do you, like, are there books that you're excited to read to your kids? Like, or like when they get to a certain age, are you like waiting for stuff? Or what kind of stuff do you read to them?
Yeah, well, my 2-year-old, I mean, he has piles of books, and
That's kind of still early in getting to absorb book age. So he's kind of new to that, right?
Yeah, definitely. He has this crazy vocabulary and has all these books memorized. He'll totally call me on, like, getting the wording slightly off and stuff.
I was hanging out with this 2-year-old a while ago, and I started trying to tell him, you know, whatever kid story popped in my head, right? And I realized that I was missing a key ingredient from every childhood story I ever had. Like, I couldn't remember why Rumpelstiltskin was, like, had this issue, which I found out later, you know. And I was like, why did the Billy Goats Gruff need to cross the bridge? Like, what is going on? And I was like, fine. I got to Three Little Pigs. Three Little Pigs is super simple. I can do this. And, you know, you just fucking zoned out the whole time I was doing it and just loved it and made me do it like 16 times, right? It's like one of those things. It's like, I don't understand what you get from this or why it's so important to you, but I will do it 16 times. Like, that's such an interesting thing for a brain to be like, I need to hear Huff Puff. I need to hear the Huff Puff or whatever again.
Yeah, no, that, like, repetition thing. Like whenever there's something that really strikes him, he'll do it over and over again until he's satisfied, you know? And it's almost like he's building this, like, muscle memory or, like, this mental catalog, you know? It's like, there's this new thing. Or, like when he gets a new book that he's into, I have to read it, like, 10 times in a row. And I just try to, like, give him that, you know? Even when I'm going out of my mind for repetition. Just to, like I'll just see, like, how many times he'll, like, have me do it and try to stay with it.
My dad's actually having a new children's book come out this year. He used to write and illustrate children's books when I was a little kid, and then he kind of stopped for a long time. And then he just wrote one about worms. It's, I guess, Francois Moulet's press is putting out.
That's cool.
Very, very excited.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool, yeah. Your dad's awesome.
Yes.
I'll have to find that and give it for my kids.
Also, his book that came out when I was a little kid is very good. It's called Mrs. Fitz's Flamingos, and I'm pretty sure you can get, like, a used version on Amazon for like 15 cents.
Really?
Yeah. If I were him, I'd buy all of them and then sell them again and sign them or something.
I know, yeah. You have them.
I'm also have excited business sense sometimes about those things. It's like, it would be a lot of effort or whatever.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice that people can get his book for 15 cents, right? I know people that like, he's a college professor, right? So I know people that went to school with him, and then, you know, when they have kids or like their nephews get kids, they like order the whole books online and send them. It's nice.
They could get signed copies from him.
It's true.
It's like, no.
You could.
Definitely draw a lot messier when I'm drawing live.
Is this like, though, usually how you kind of start? If you're not already in the middle of a story, you just kind of start?
Yeah, definitely. I have, like I've been trying to either be doing my woodcuts for galleries, or like I'm just gonna, you know, doodle or do some stream of conscious stuff. I end up folding paper so that it can become a book. So I have these like stream of conscious zines that I'm always working on. When I feel like drawing, I'll just open one of those up and start drawing, so that the end result will end up being like a book that I can self-publish.
Yeah.
It helps me kind of like keep, like catalog everything and keep track of it. Because before I just had so many drawings I'd done just like on receipts and random pieces of paper and stuff that gets lost or damaged, you know. I've been trying to just sort of keep better track of stuff. And just filling up a book until it's done feels really satisfying, because it ends up being like this record of a really specific period of time.
So that would be like a kind of a stream of conscious. Do you have like a set number of pages you're like, this is?
Yeah, I've just been taking, like I'll just take like thicker paper and fold like 32 pages and then just start filling it. And when I get to the end, I'll go and be able to make direct reproductions of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. That would be something that would be a good, like convenient for me as like a travel journal.
Yeah, definitely. I've got just some bunch of 8.5 by 11 like thicker paper that's good to draw on. If you want to just have something, you can just fold it. And,
yeah, sure. So are these like tiny? Are you doing quarter size or like half size or
I'm
size?
doing, I guess just it's 8.5 by 11 folded in half.
Okay. Oh yeah.
And then
So it's half size.
Yeah. Just directly run it through a copy machine and make copies of it.
And I'd seen a little quarter size thing Farrell had done at the last at Pix, right? And there are all these.
Oh yeah.
I liked it a lot. There are these drawings of. I've seen drawings of this, I guess, in some other contemporary doodlers or whatever in the world, but like of machines that are like monster machines and stuff, because they're a very go-to thing, and it's what like the monster fighting comic I was doing is all about. You know, how kids like imagining dump trucks as machines and like going for it. But I think I realized that one of the things that does also is it creates notice around how bizarre our world is. Because when you draw all the machines and handmade like technological things we have as monsters, it makes you just remember that it's really bizarre they exist.
Yeah, definitely.
And like it's weird because there was a time in human history where drawing monsters as boxy, like animals as machines was like what everyone was doing. It's like one day there'll be like robot deer and stuff. Like, can you imagine? And now it's like, no, I don't. I could look it up on YouTube. Just can you look how crazy we all are? It's like, I guess that's for me, like sometimes you're drawing the same thing for like, 600 hours, and on hour 613, you're like, wait, I've been drawing the same metaphor all day and I didn't get it until right now.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, there's so many weird, like recurring themes in my art that I don't know. It's just more of a feeling, and then like years later, sometimes I'll suddenly make sense.
Do you ever watch any anime at all by any chance?
I've seen some, but not for a long time. So,
Ever watched Evangelion?
no, I've never heard of it.
It's awesome. It's like 18 hours, and when you watch it, you'll feel like you know the meaning of life for at least 15 seconds, and then it'll go away. But
it's a good 15 seconds.
it was amazing. The second time you watch it all the way through, it only lasts for like 2 seconds in my experience. But no, I'm really into it. And actually, the Dash Shaw was in Pittsburgh talking, and he had said also that he felt like it was the most important narrative like written in our time. But it's this robot fighting cartoon, right? Where
it's a series.
It's a series, yeah. It's a robot fighting cartoon that the guy who wrote it was like, in and out of asylum, like right beforehand, and there's a lot to talk about. But the basics are that it starts off as like just a really cool fighting robot thing, and it slowly gets more existential to the point where there are whole episodes where there's just a squiggly white line in the middle of the screen, and like the main character is just narrating over it, like, who am I? What am I doing? Like stuff like that. It's just the metaphor of like being in a giant robot is like occupying your own body and having to interact with the world is just like done super well. And it ended up being really influential to so many different anime that came after it, in which I feel like there's tons of anime that allow you to just have stuff that doesn't make sense, like even in the weird world you create necessarily, but it makes like an emotional sense, and then that's okay. So I recommend it, is all I'm saying. If you have spare 18 hours,
I'll check that out. I like it when narratives start out as more typical and then sort of like start taking these weird turns because you know the author's been at it so long. All this other stuff just starts kind of creeping in.
Plus it also, I think that convinces all these people to access a story that's weirder than they would be willing to put in the time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think if you start out weird, sometimes people run away.
Yeah, it has to be a slow creep.
But also sometimes you don't know what stuff's about until you're like 2/3 of the way done anyway, right?
Yeah. With any narrative, you're pretty much just going on like these inklings you're having, you know. I can never see very far into my story, so I kind of have to start, and then it starts opening up to me, you know.
We have a question from Michelle Anderson. Theo,
Nice.
if you were to draw a character that lives in the Berkeley pit, what would it look like? She's the person who worked at the haunted house. Do you know about the Berkeley pit?
Yeah, I've gazed upon it with my own eyes.
Oh man, I didn't pay the $3. I'll have to go back.
It really costs money to see it now?
Yeah, you have to pay $3. Really? I've seen the edges of the pit.
Does that go towards like cleaning it or something?
I don't think so. I think it's just this lady that is like the troll. I haven't actually talked to anyone about this, but my impression, based purely on I have no idea what, is that there's this woman that has a house at the edge of a tunnel, and she just like took ownership of this tunnel, and you have to pay her $3 through her kitchen window in order to go through.
Whoa.
Or else bad luck forever.
Wow, that's amazing.
I don't know if it's true.
So if I were to draw a creature that lived in the Berkeley pit, it would probably have to be some kind of like giant sea cucumber kind of creature that just like fed on the weird toxins in there.
Do you hear about the dog of the Berkeley pit?
No.
They're apparently for a long time. Okay, so catch anyone who's on the internet and not from Montana. The Berkeley pit is the nation's biggest Superfund site. It is a giant pit of acid in which flocks of birds land in and disintegrate, or more or less.
And it's left from like the copper mining.
Yeah.
You know, like the 1800s. Right?
Yeah, it is. And there's still mining going on in the area. but it was once. This space is slowly filling with water, so it's this huge pool of very toxic water in which nothing grows. Like Salt Lake City has its microbes, the Berkeley pit does not have those. It has nothing. But there was this dog that somehow miraculously was living there, like eating things that fell into the pit and died. And like the ground around the Berkeley pit apparently melts workers' boots. But this dog like built like super cow's paws, and it was this white shaggy dog. It was like super dirty, but had like dreads hanging off like this mop. And some worker went and like trimmed its hair so it could see, and said that it had the most beautiful eyes. That's all I know about it.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. That's all word of mouth, so it's probably mostly inaccurate.
Yeah, it sounds like the stuff of legend. I hope it's true though.
I have a question too, Dan. Oh, thanks for the nice haunted house thing you said. We're buffering. Also, if you like, give me my next sculpture concept. Oh yeah, so the first time I met this woman, she was making a grandma pumpkin face out of clay in the IBRC, the art space I was in. And I was like, that's going to be an ugly teapot. And I just like, kind of whatever. But she was very nice, and I talked to her for a while. And it ended up being like, so I didn't say that at the time. This is the first time she's probably hearing that from me. But she cast the clay into made a plaster cast, and then made a silicone mask. And ultimately, she made the most horrifying grandma pumpkin face lady that looks like a doll. Like, that's why it's so scary. When you went into that section, I happen to know it wasn't, but you walk in and you think there's this mannequin standing there because it's such a like an amazing piece. And then she like slowly moves. It's like, and so like that's another like all these little artistic elements are like hand done personally for this specific thing, you know?
Oh man, that's beautiful. I had no idea that was happening. I gotta go there next year.
It's also funny because sometimes the simplest stuff is the scariest, but like you're going to the zombie run is they made this maze out of pallets and just had a bunch of teenagers in makeup going and like hopping out of dark places, and that's really scary. Like there's just part of our brains that's not going to not be scared of a weird person jumping out of the dark.
Yeah.
But like some of the less scary stuff that's just beautiful and amazing, like walking over the mirror glass. It's not exactly scary, but it's this amazing piece of art.
It takes you out of your normal reality.
Yeah, sure. Oh yeah, I guess I wanted to ask you again about having kids, like if that at all has affected how not just you think about productivity and get to work, but how you think about like selling your work or like trying to, make money off of what you do and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, it definitely puts more pressure on making the money and paying out, which is always, I don't know, it's still a kind of a tricky juggling act for me.
Yeah.
If I was rich enough, I would just still be making art nonstop, but because I want to be able to make art nonstop, I have to find ways for my art to then help fund me too,
Yeah.
So,
like I'm on a similar boat, but just not with as much responsibility or demands,
Yeah, I definitely have to like keep hustling, make prints or like my stream of conscious zines that I make. I would probably like they feel really personal to me, and I don't know if they make sense to anyone else, even looking at them. But I probably would have kept those. I would just put them away, and they would be like this record that is just for me.
Yeah.
But because I need to make ends meet, I was like, well, I should print them and share them. So it definitely makes me share more of my work than I probably would.
That's kind of lucky for everyone else on the planet.
Thanks. No, it's definitely good. It gets me out of. I've got this weird thing I always have to battle where my first kind of inclination with my work is to kind of hide it and not show it to people. And I always have to kind of fight that and like put it out there, which has been a good exercise for me for sure.
Yeah.
I still have stacks of drawings no one's ever seen, but like I definitely worked hard to make it visible, try to like reach out to people.
Well, what do you do to do those things? Like, other than just like printing it and selling it out? Do you have kind of a standard kind of promotion routine when you put out a new little thing or something?
Well, I mean, it wasn't until I moved back to Missoula 2 years ago that I even like was on Facebook or any kind of social media kind of thing. So I definitely got more active that way, just so like I had a way to be visible and not totally vanish. I don't know. I'm still just kind of winging it at all times. I feel like. But
I feel like that's kind of the whole point of artists, though, to a certain extent. It's like, since what you do, it has to be new every time. You have to be good at winging it, right? Like,
yeah, definitely. Just like following my gut feeling and just putting everything I have into what I'm doing. I just constantly feel like that's my only method. Like that has to be enough. Is like if it feels thrilling to me and I'm like having a blast and feeling like there's some kind of momentum or suspense in my drawing, and I just kind of like hope that other people will see what I'm doing and find value in it. But like in the meantime, if I'm not feeling excited, then there's kind of no point, So I just try to like constantly put everything I've got into whatever I'm doing, and then hope that also equals to making ends meet,
Yeah. Do you remember? I guess the hour's up, but also, but do you remember when like the first time you were like scraping by on doing what you want to do?
Yeah, it was when I moved to Portland, I really like started making that push, and I was doing the Portland Saturday Market, which is sort of like basically just like street vending on the street, like setting up a tent of your stuff and just like talking with the general public that comes by, and like that was like a super like painful process for me, kind of, but also totally fascinating, like just talking to so many different kinds of people, and people that really related to it and people that didn't get it at all, wanted you to, that would kind of demand some kind of explanation for what you were doing, But it was hard. It was definitely like paying my dues as like just an artist sitting out on the street with this stuff, and facing all kinds of weird stuff and interacting with completely insane people, and it was amazing. I mean, I'm kind of like glad I'm not doing that now. It was really hard, but that was when I first started actually like paying all my bills by just with my art, like the things I made myself on my own terms and putting it out there.
Does Portland Saturday Market still exist?
Yeah. It's definitely it's sort of like a carnival or something. Being part of the carnival.
I'm probably gonna set up a table. I'm gonna be there a month.
Yeah, I think you can go there and be like a guest vendor. Maybe it's something you have to apply for. It's like juried.
Okay.
I'm not sure how.
I'll see what I can do.
How long that process goes, but if you're there on the last Thursday of the month, there's the one up on Alberta Street, which is free, and anyone can just show up and set up a table. And that's a lot more just unregulated and insane. So you basically will have like a table set up under a street lamp, and like someone might step on your stuff walking by on stilts, or like someone might blow flames all over. It's like being like in the middle of a carnival with your art. It's a good experience.
Cool. I'm gonna turn this part off, and we can keep trying if you want. Is there any place you want to tell people to look for your stuff?
Well, I'll be in Brooklyn this weekend, the Comic Arts Brooklyn Festival, for the release of my new book. And then the following weekend, I'll be in Seattle at the Short Run Small Press Festival. Super excited about both of those because they're really excellent places to get small press work and like self-published stuff.
And where can people just buy your stuff online? Can they do that?
I've got an Etsy shop where I have a lot of prints and zines and books for sale and stuff. Yeah, I have you can get to that from my website, thoughtcloudfactory.com.
Thoughtcloudfactory.com. And you're probably at my website if you're watching this, danielmccloskey.com. Birdcage Bottom Books carries my stuff. Pages for the bottom of your cages. Yeah, I like his style. JT's awesome. Yeah, and that's it. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, we'll have more. Oh, yeah, not a big one.
Sure, I'll say goodbye with this guy. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.
I didn't see the eyes before. That's okay.